we got some good share and just some updates on.
Are you gonna get us some money? Is that the
Yeah,
good news?
well, actually, yeah, there's money this year, so that's good news. So, and actually, why don't we start with the money? So,
Great.
as you know, we are, the support team for what's called the Central Ohio Rural Planning Organization, which Madison County helped found, which is the transportation planning group. And, yeah, it's all but final. But the county engineer had applied for a bridge deck replacement or something over Spring Fork, and you're gonna get $550,000 for it. So that's great news. So that project is moving forward. And I know this year there was a slightly reduced funding, so the fact that you got money is really great. There are 7 counties that work collaboratively for folks, so I know the county engineer is going to be happy. When I say it's all but certain, the amount of projects that were approved are going to public, so it's all but certain. So congratulations, and hopefully that'll help. It's great. It looks like it's County Road 170. But that's again.
Good news, thank you.
Yeah. Well, now everything else is kind of downhill from there, right? I'll try to make it as good as possible. So, we've got, the presentation we always bring. We appreciate the county being engaged in all too. So, we serve all of Central Ohio. Most of our, oh, sorry.
Amy, are we recording? You started the recording back up? Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
When you look at that map, the story of that map, I think, is an important one. So half of our members are outside of Franklin County. So half of our services, half of the work we do. So this is something where we say that we are working for Madison County. We work with rural counties all over Central Ohio, and that's a core part of how we view our values and how we serve you. So this updates just through that lens. Of course, we do work in Columbus and Franklin County too, because we serve the whole region. But I wanted to let you know that. And in Madison County in particular, Plain City, their township or village administrator, Haley, is on our executive committee. So you now have a voice on the executive committee for Morrissey. She's been engaged between West Jefferson and Mount Sterling and London. You're one of the counties with the most communities engaged. So we hear a lot in Madison County. Very good.
Love to hear that.
So we go to the next one. We always start with our values. We believe in public service. Working in local government isn't always easy, so we want to pay it forward. I know last year you had an intern through our program, and this year went to London.
Water sewer and law GIS work, so.
And that was a free intern.
Yes, my mom picked it up.
Yeah, so we were glad to bring that to you as well. Our other values, you're a member of Morpsey, so we want to make sure you're seeing the value. Investment is what we're all about, to help you be prosperous. We are the group that does the population forecast for Central Ohio. So it's been getting a lot of news lately. The region as a whole is continuing to grow. So that 15 county projection, we're still on track to add about 700,000 people through 2050. When we look specifically at the county, this is last year's numbers based on what we have. The story is one that is births and deaths are about the same, but net migration, so folks moving into the county more than moving out, that's pretty strong. And I think I don't need to tell you all the reality of that with the housing pressure that creates, but 863 people. So this shows that you're still on track to continue to experience growth through 2050. That's something that's when we think about planning or infrastructure, we want to help things begin. But that's what we're seeing in those numbers. So every year, we monitor that. We work in infrastructure. We like to talk about the big moves going on because Central Ohio is having a lot of things going on. I know you're feeling this. You just had a major employer announce here in London, a couple hundred jobs. So that's just one part of the story that we're seeing. Whether it's housing, and we'll talk about things like passenger rail. The airport is, if you haven't been out there yet, give yourself a couple extra minutes. They're building an entirely new terminal. That's a really big deal for Central Ohio. A lot of road work, a lot of stuff going on. One of the things that we're closely involved in is passenger rail. So this goes right through the county. This is a line that we're working on. If you can see that map, Pittsburgh, Columbus, on up to Fort Wayne, Chicago. There's another one, Cleveland to Cincinnati. This week, we're announcing this is going to move to what's called step 2, the federal process. So step 1 is getting ready for step 2. Step 2 is the big piece that answers how fast, where will the stations be, how much will it cost, how will it impact freight rail. We are just about to move into that next step. So that's the one that answers everybody's questions. There may be a question too, does the state of Ohio support it? And what about the Trump administration? The good news is in September, the state's Ohio Rail Development Commission approved what's called their state rail plan. And this was in that plan. So that's a good news from the state. And the Trump administration's been supportive. About 2 weeks ago, they released a new call for grants for about $5 billion for passenger rail investments like this one. As well, they haven't given us money to build it yet. The administration's continuing to support projects around economic development, particularly services to the heartland. Big focus there. So we're going to keep working on that with the business community. Transportation planning area. This is where I was going to tell you about the $500,000 grant. So that's the good news there. A couple other things we have going on. There's a program called Competitive Advantage. So this is for economic development projects. I know you're posted for an economic development person, so we'll share that with the network if you haven't got the person you want yet. But economic development projects that don't fit neatly into these other grant programs. So we're doing a refresh of that so that we can help you write grants, help you advocate for money. So that's something this fall we'll be spending a lot of time on working with the county. We've been doing a lot of work in water. So since the last time we sat down, Ohio EPA and Morpsey worked on something called the Central Ohio Water Study. That is out, that has tools specific to each county. I know the Mid-Ohio District's been using that and part of that. Basically, think of it as information. So Morpsey's always had information on traffic modeling and congestion and roads. This is that except for water and sewer and well recharging and that kind of stuff. As part of that, there's also the sewer side of it. And so that's where 208 comes in. And this slide moves, it should say more than 208 plan. The other piece of it is in the fastest growing counties in Central Ohio, there's a lot of talk about sewer facility boundaries. There's some pressure on that. Morpsey's been providing the technical service to Ohio EPA, and Ohio EPA has asked us to set up a regional process to help them resolve disputes. So Morpsey won't be resolving the disputes, we'll be providing the technical assistance to an anyhow. This does not include Madison County. So this has been going through our board. It includes Union, Delaware, Licking, Fairfield, and Franklin. So those are the counties with the highest population growth. So if you hear about that, that's not going to directly impact Madison County. It may be something that we're still able to provide technical assistance through EPA too, but just wanted to make sure you knew that we were working in the water and the sewer space. But the water side in particular, we've been creating a lot of tools for, just a couple other quick things. A lot of work going on in trails. I know you know this really well. There are hundreds of miles that are planned and there's still state funds available for it. So we're continuing to organize people around it. London was actually one of what we call our trail towns. We helped create the economic development strategy. That has been so popular. There are about half dozen towns all over Central Ohio that would like to do the same thing. So you all helped inspire that. So that's something that we continue to work on is how trails connect to economic development. Usually you see Joe Garrity sitting here with me. He is on vacation this week, so I'm going to do my best to tell you about the state government. There's all sorts of things going on. I know they're really caught up with things like redistricting and property taxes right now. I'm not here to talk about that. But we are focused on upcoming state capital bills. So we held a session last Thursday on this. It is time to start preparing your projects for the state capital bill. So if you haven't already, we've got some information to share. As part of that, Morpsey works with the business community on their list of priorities to make sure that projects that are helping local governments are on that list. So we'll be reaching out to you to make sure that yeah. I mean, you're familiar with the state capital process. Basically, this is discretionary projects that they give out for capital. The role that Morpsey has, I think, is kind of interesting. So the Columbus partnership is the business CEOs group, and they create their own list. And they've invited us to be on that list specifically to make sure that communities outside of Franklin County are on that list. So that's our number one priority, is making sure that Madison County communities have a project or two on that recommendation list and so on. So that's the role that we play to have them. So the good news is we've got a couple months, and I know that you have a list of projects, I'm sure, that are ready to go, but we can be helpful for you.
Yeah, as far as the county goes, we don't really have anything that I can think of that fits in.
They're narrow
into
buckets,
these
yeah.
buckets, but we are leading a kind of a collaborative effort, having a meeting with the municipalities to say, okay, what projects do you have that could fit, and how do we provide support to those communities?
That's great.
So,
Yeah, let us be supportive of that, because there's the whole part of the process where the county needs to be on board, and you want your state representative and state senator to be part of it. But we also want to make sure you get those projects on the business community list. And kind of the theory is you want to be on everybody's list, so when they're making the decisions that I think that is.
yeah, I wish the buckets weren't so narrow.
Yeah, they have to be tied to a specific state agency, and it has to be a bondable project, so there's some good ones in there, but yeah, it won't cover transportation projects, which cuts out a lot of big ones. Some other things Joe was gonna talk to you about. So we talked about passenger rail. From the federal government standpoint, we are working on something called the Central Ohio Defense Group. So we organize all of the communities in Central Ohio who have defense facilities to make sure we're supporting them. I know we went as a delegation up in July, trying to see what things our military facilities need from our communities. You think being in the community, that conversation is easy. Sometimes it's not, just cutting through all of the process. So that's part of what we do, is try to make it easier to have local governments serve them. So a lot going on there. We have 8,000 jobs in military defense in Central Ohio. When you throw in the private company and growth coming, that's another 4,000 jobs. So this is something where a lot of times Central Ohio doesn't think of itself as a defense and military hub, but we very much are, because we're our largest employers. So we want to make sure we're making that connection. Eileen, you want to come in next?
My name is member service with the Morpsey, I've been with one for 12 years, so he brought these opportunities. So the last time we were here, we've added another institution for your employees to take advantage of discounts. This is Columbus State. They're doing cybersecurity certificates. They're not hard to earn. Now that we all have to have a cyber breach plan in place, every government has to have them. So they'll teach security, data analytics, and AI. And you don't have to be an IT person to take those. And then all these institutions, just a reminder, provide your staff discounts if they want to attend these programs. The two I always love to call out, Capital and Audubon, give your employees' children $20,000 off a year to go to college. That's $80,000 if one of them wants to go. I know we've had one township trustee in Audubon, so
That's
you're probably very happy.
Yeah, just sorry to interrupt, but this applies not just to the commissioner's offices, but the county engineer, all of the various county offices, all of their employees qualify. It's
And
great.
Frank is probably the most popular because you can still work on the building class. There's degrees over. And then the next page shows our intern class. We have 50. That's a huge class this year. We have a dedicated coordinator that she's out in the colleges right now, getting ready for the 2026. We're happy to have him in London both years now. And let's see, and we do our work forums. We'll be getting those organized again for 2026. We did mobility, economic development, and that's put up 13. Can we?
Yes.
We always try to keep the, based on our visits over to all of our cities and villages, what are the most popular concerns we're having. And then we have a key thing at the top of number 17, our data maps group are always trying to figure out how to target specific maps to benefit communities. And this one is to drive tourism to our communities and distinguish if you call yourselves downtown, uptown, midtown. We're all a little bit different in how we categorize things and pilots and special places. I love visiting here. I was in your car show and all the other things. I love it. And then, taking a survey of all of our, residents in the Central Ohio region to kind of reflect on things and concerns they have as we grow and build that into our county.
So, I know it's a lot of information, but it's kind of the snapshot. There are a couple other things we wanted to make sure you were aware of. One, we just finished what we call our return on investment for you. So every year, we want to make sure that if you're investing $1 in one year, the county is getting at least $1 back. So we go through all of our services and we give it to you in a short summary. So I think this one, company, yeah. So that's something that we take really seriously. That's a more of a business approach where you want to make sure we're a good deal for the county. So we want to make sure that we're reporting that out to you. And then we've got a couple other things.
Yes,
So we just finished a salary and benefits survey. So 41 local governments filled this out. There's a lot of information here, but as you're getting ready for budget time, as you're hiring new positions or replacement positions, you can take a peek and see what everybody else is paying, what kind of health insurance they're giving. So I think that's useful. And then we talked, all of those scholarship things are on here too. Maybe the last thing I'll mention is we have this planning assistance program. We're currently working with London on their comprehensive plan. But whether you need an employee to borrow or you need a consultant, we have pre-qualified consultants. We can help with a lot of technical assistance on planning and zoning issues. So as the county calculates, if you need anything.
Most people do not be looking at because they have zoning applications, so they're borrowing.
Yeah, we have an agreement with them where I think it's something like 10 hours a week. As they need it, we can flex an employee out there to do the work they need to come back so they don't have to hire them. So as you have those things, now it's tough to compete for employees. We want to be helpful. So that's
Inspector,
what's that?
zoning inspector.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. So that is our number one requested is zoning and building inspectors.
Yeah.
So we're looking into that. We don't have that skill set right now, but I imagine that might be helpful.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. But that's our update. What kind of questions can we answer?
Yeah, appreciate that as always. Thank you for the update. Any questions, gentlemen, comments?
Yeah, a few. Thank you both for being here. I'm fairly new, so I'm still learning the ropes about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Can you help me understand the membership organizations? How does that come about? Does each community, each township, for instance, opt in or out? I assume, right? We're not, by virtue of our membership, every township's not automatically a member. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, thanks for the
can
question.
you speak to that?
Yeah. So on that map, so we serve 15 counties. So we
Right.
serve that whole area. Townships, counties, villages, and cities can opt in to get more services or to be on different programs. So the county has opted in
Right.
to that. In the county, I think every major village and city has. So Plain City, Mount Sterling, West Jeff, and London have all opted in, and the townships haven't. Madison County. And that's not a surprise. A lot of our services are geared to a little bit larger communities, and a lot of the townships in our rural areas are pretty small when it comes to staffing and those kind of things. But yeah, we have about 16 or 17 townships in the region that have opted in.
Okay.
So if that helps.
Yeah, no, it does. So the green is just if the county has opted in, it doesn't include all of those townships.
Yes.
Okay.
But kind of a caveat to that, Commissioner, is that means that we're doing a lot of work on behalf of the county that impacts the townships.
Sure.
So when we have meetings, we'll have meetings where we invite the township trustees, whether it's water or transportation, to make sure they're in. So whether or not they've opted in as a member or not, we're still working to serve them and making sure they're getting the information.
Yeah.
Especially since the county's engaged.
Sure. Understood. On the passenger rail,
Yeah.
when you described it, it sounded more likely and potentially imminent than I guess I thought. Can you speak more to the status? I mean, I know you mentioned with the Trump administration and the state plan. What's the process from here? What's the expected timeline? What would the local communities, either at the county level or whoever would be involved locally on that?
Yeah, I appreciate the question on that. So in the timescale of major transportation projects, it's sooner rather than later. But to real people, we're still a few years out. So, Morphe's been working as the lead agency to try to bring it back to Central Ohio. We haven't had it in 40 years. The process that we're in right now, so we have these two lines, Chicago to Pittsburgh, Cleveland to Cincinnati. They are both in the federal program, which is called corridor identification. So the Federal Railroad Administration has a program for new passenger rail routes. About a year and a half ago, we entered step one of a step three process. That's a pretty short step. This next step is about a 2-year process, and this is the one that gets really interesting. So people could be paying a lot more attention in the next 2 years because this develops what's called a service development plan. Before you can build a passenger rail line, you got to have this thing done. Think of it as your planning and capital document. So it'll determine where the stations will be, how the tracks will be used with freight rail, how fast the service will go, how frequent it'll be. So those things over the next 2 years, we're going to be talking a lot about. And that is part of the federal process, and it's 90% funded by U.S. Department of Transportation. So when it seems imminent, it's not quite imminent just yet because we're in this process where we're going to determine if it's a good investment. So at the end of that service development plan, that's when decision makers will say, okay, do we want to go for bigger capital grants? Do we want to invest in it? So there's some time to talk about it and look at it. The last thing I'll add to that is it's contemplated using existing tracks for the most part. So this is not taking land, going through farm fields or anything like that. This is looking at the existing freight tracks and how you can add passenger rail service. It's kind of neat because the federal program is set up that if you want to add passenger rail, but you need a bypass for freight or you need to make the tracks bigger, you can actually pay to make freight rail better when you're looking at passenger rail. So we're in this planning phase for about the next 2 years. Is that helpful?
It is, it is. Is there an opportunity for the county or the local communities to provide input? You mentioned this is the process at which the station sites would be determined.
Yes.
And that's obviously a very big thing that could potentially transform the landscape of an area where they're chosen. So how are those chosen? What type of community input is allowed or?
Yeah, so there'll be it's a great question, Commissioner. So there'll be a significant community engagement piece where it's looking at what communities want, the ones that make most sense, not just from a community's perspective, but from the track perspective. So that'll all be a process here in the next 2 years. The one that goes through Madison County, the state of Ohio is leading on that one, but the process looks really similar to the same one that we're doing, and we'll be engaged on that. So I'd say it'll probably be next year before there's outreach or engagement on that, but they're definitely.
So we should expect to receive engagement. Yeah. So there's two that are potentially proposed for passing through the county.
Just one. So if you look at the Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati route, that one goes right through Madison County and existing lines. And then the one that goes Columbus to Pittsburgh, and I might have misspoke earlier, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Chicago, that curves up and it'll come close to the county, but it'll basically go Franklin County to Union County out up. So it'll come pretty close to Plain City, but not based on that freight, the rail track that we're looking at right now. But yeah, so there'll be a lot more on this. I think it'll be interesting because there's a push to make sure that the service that you start with is fast. And there's always a concern by local communities to make sure they're getting as many stations as they can. So that would be part of the process is to determine what makes the most sense for services and start time. Long story short, the county will definitely hear more about this here as we get into 2026.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if everything went well, when would construction start? If everything went well?
Oh, gosh, well, that's,
Are we 10 years down the road, or are we 15 years down the road?
I think the earliest you'd be looking at some would be 2030s, timeline, so early 2030s. So it's about a 2-year process. This is a good question and it's a fair one. 2 years, and at that point, you'll have an idea of how much it'll cost and what might be constructed. And then there's federal resources available to do that. So at that point, well, it's 2026, you're looking at 28, 29 before we have clarity around that. And then it'll be a few years, I would imagine, even full steam ahead. So you're looking at early 2030s.
Good. Well, we appreciate it as always. Appreciate the partnership, appreciate the resources, and we thank you for being here.
Appreciate it, commissioners, and hope that fog clears up soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out. Sure.
Of course, yeah. We have to make Facebook and Instagram happy, right?
You want to adjourn it?
Yeah. Yep.